Thank you so much, Laura. I'm so excited to be here, very honored. As she said, I am a visual artist. I'm inspired by science, nature, and technology. I create large-scale illuminated installations and hand-cut paperworks inspired by the natural world. I'm also a survivor of domestic violence and emotional abuse. That was very hard for me to say several years ago. And without Tana, our speaker, I probably wouldn't be here today saying that in front of a room full of people. Art has always been a source of healing and change in my life, and the butterfly in wings is inspired by power, healing, and transformation. And today, I'm very excited to introduce a butterfly in my life, Tana Greene. Tana is the co-founder and CEO of My Work Choice, a remarkable businesswoman, and a friend and mentor. She is a force of nature. She's encouraged me to use my voice. She helped me get on the path to curating a large community exhibition about domestic violence and sexual assault called Unbound, and to create safe spaces for others to have these important conversations and advocate. I know her words this morning will inspire and transform each of you, just as she has inspired me. So please join me in warmly and joyfully welcoming Tana Greene to the stage.
Thank you, Meredith. I think you did more for me than you can ever imagine. When you meet other survivors and you really get to know each other, the support is amazing, and Meredith is nothing less than amazing, so thank you. And I want to thank Laura for her leadership and all of those that serve her, from the employees to the volunteers. You're making a difference every day in the lives you serve. And then I want to thank my family and friends, because without them, I would not be able to stand here and tell the story. My friend was smart enough to give me a Kleenex, so I have it tucked in my sleeve. But I'm going to start. My story began in 1973 when I was about to start high school. And I was living in Chesapeake, Virginia, and I had a traditional family. I had a brother that was 2 years older than me. We lived in a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath ranch home. I was starting high school, and oh yeah, there's the baby picture, and the 2-year-old brother. And it was, my dad was a retired military officer, worked at Sears. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. I was the chaplain of my school. That was when you were elected position to be a chaplain. And starting school, what does every girl want? They want the boyfriend, because it defines us. If we get the boyfriend, man, we're everything. And middle of the year, my brother played in a band, and they would always practice in the garage, and I got to go because I was the little sister. And as a freshman, this senior, Mr. Popular, wanted to date me. And I thought, wow, I have hit the jackpot. And so as life moved on, we went to the prom, and he gave me a promise ring, and I said yes. And by the middle of between my 9th and 10th grade, I got pregnant. I had to go to my parents and tell them. My parents were so loving and so giving. They said, "What do y'all want to do?" And we said, "Oh, we want to be married. We want to have this child." So my parents were so phenomenal. They helped him find work, helped us find a place to live, and we were to go off into happy bliss. Well, during our dating time, there were times where he would say, "I don't want you riding the bus because it's dangerous," or "I don't want you hanging with certain people because that's not good." I thought it was because he loved me so much, he was protecting me. Little did I know that as we got married that it would become physical abuse. He would take the phone with him to work, so I couldn't talk to anybody. I wasn't allowed to have anyone in the house. Now here I am, I'm 16 years old with a baby at home alone, but it was my fault. I couldn't tell anybody. It was that shameful thing of, I'm gonna do better, just like she said. I really thought I could solve this by not telling anyone. Well, It all changed on the night that we were to have a date night. And we got married. I walked down the aisle wearing the white dress after 2 weeks of telling my parents, the church that I'd grown up in through the big reception. And life was supposed to be wonderful. So we were supposed to go on a date. It was a Friday night. He was late coming home. I had spent all day getting ready. You guys know as a teenager what you go through. The makeup has to be perfect. The hair has to be perfect. And it was like back in the day when, in order to straighten your hair, there was no straighteners. You had to put rollers this big on the top of your head and wear them all day long to get that straightness. I was no different. But he was late coming home, and he'd been drinking. And I started crying because I wanted to be with my friends. And he said, fine, get in the car. So we got in the car. We drove over to my parents' house because they were babysitting. He removed the carrier, the 8-month-old, my son, put it on the ground, beat me, and drove off. I had to go to the door. I didn't have a choice. My father took one look at me, grabbed his keys, didn't say a word, and went looking for him. Thank God he didn't find him. But my mother was smart. She said, you need to talk to someone. You need someone that can understand what you're going through. There was nothing called domestic violence in 1975. I think that was the year our center opened here. And so she called somebody at the YWCA, and they said, I've got someone she can talk to. I'll set an appointment on Monday. So that Monday, I started in intense therapy with a counselor. By Friday, he said to me, this is not your fault. This is the situation you're in. And if it wasn't for having that connection of somebody to help me decide what I wanted for my next phase, I don't know that I would have gotten out of that. It's that transformational counseling that Safe Alliance gives that made all the difference in my life. But he said to me, you have a choice. You can be a victim or you can be a survivor, and only you can make that choice. I went home and I wrote down on a piece of paper 4 goals. I wanted to finish high school. I wanted to own my own home by the time I was 25. I wanted to marry a knight in shining armor. And I wanted to own my own business by the time I was 30. These were the goals I wrote down. I formally divorced him, and I actually graduated high school in a cap and gown because I was determined not to do the GED. So I did that. I graduated high school. But the interesting thing, it doesn't stop there. I think what people think is, well, she's gone, she's divorced, it's over. But it's not. And I was no different. I had gotten through school, went to secretarial school, and got my 9-month certificate to become a secretary, and got my own apartment. I went out one day to go to work, and on my windshield was a flyer, a Xerox copy of 3 Polaroid pictures that were taken when I was married. They were not flattering pictures. I didn't know what to do, so someone said, well, you need to go get a restraining order against him. So I go down to the magistrate's office, and they said, well, without proof, we can't do anything, but we'll put somebody watching your apartment in the street, see if we can catch him. This went on for 2 years. There were times he put these pictures in my parents' neighborhood. That was embarrassing. And it wasn't until I bought my first home, which was my second goal. I was 22 years old, and I bought my first home. And I just happened to know the gentleman that had just been elected as the Commonwealth's attorney in Virginia Beach. And I told him what was happening to me, and he said, I'm going to send somebody over to your house, and we're going to tap your phone. This is when you had the rotary dial phones. They pulled it apart, put the tap inside, and said, we want you to call him and find out why he's doing this. But more than that, we would love it if you could get him to meet you somewhere and we could get it on tape in person. Well, of course, I'm scared to death. But I made the call. He wouldn't talk to me. I offered to meet him in person. He agreed. So we were to meet in a public parking lot on a Monday night. I will never forget it. And they said, an hour before you're to meet him, I want you to call him, make sure he's coming. Then I want you to get in your car and drive to the grocery store. and I want you to buy something, and then on your way back, I want you to pull around behind the elementary school, and there'll be a van waiting for you. Well, it looked like a hippie van when I pulled around behind that. The doors opened, the surveillance stuff was everywhere, and they had long hair and roach clips everywhere, and I was like, oh my God, I felt like I was in a movie. But they tapped my car, they wired it within like 2 minutes, and they said, now go home, act normal, then go meet him. We're right there, you'll see the van, you'll be safe. Well, I'm scared to death. This is somebody who beat me to a pulp many a times. But I knew I had to do this. I knew I had to end this. So he showed up, and in the car he said to me, he said, I don't want to pay child support anymore. I don't want to acknowledge this child anymore. I'm married again. I want to have my own family. You better figure it out, or else you won't live to tell it. You've got 30 days. Well, that's all they needed to make the arrest. So that took care of that. I didn't have any problems after that. Yes. And then my third goal was to marry a knight in shining armor. And he's here today. You stand up. No. If it wasn't for his unconditional love, I would not be here today, trust me. But this is my family. We just renewed 40 years. We just did it. And it was just at the beach with her. I didn't get to wear the dress, so I had to buy the full dress. But this was a picture that we took after, and it was just our family. We just wanted to go through that and to tell our kids what's important in life. That was goal number 3. Number 4 was to own my own business. And Mike and I opened the doors of the business My Work Choice when I was 29 years old. And it's not easy to own a business. I will say that I think the average person fails 3 times. Trust me, we failed at least 3 times, but we were able to hold on to the business and it becomes successful. But you know what's amazing is I'm serving in the community as a business leader. I was on the Chamber's board, and I'm on the Employers Association board, but nobody knew my story. I carried that burden. It was like, I didn't go to college. I got married at 15. What would people think of me as a business leader if they knew this story? So I never told that story to anyone. But there was something inside of me that said I needed to tell this. And so one day, a friend of mine's daughter was a senior in high school at Cannon School, and she said, would you come talk to my class about healthy relationships? Because I know what you went through. And I said, yes. And then I thought, oh my God, what have you done? You have just opened Pandora's box here. And but I knew deep down that I had to do this. This was really important that I tell my story. I didn't ever know where it was going to go or how it was going to come across. I just knew I had to do something. It was really on my heart. So I spoke at her school that day, and I got to know people at Safe Alliance. At that point, I was asked to serve on the board, which I did for 12 years, and I was asked to be the spokesperson. We raised $10 million in order to open the Clyde and Ethel Dixon Domestic Violence Center. You know what's amazing about that is we did it in 08 and 09, at the worst possible years. We were only a year behind in delivering, but we did it. But what I discovered is in leaning into my story, I found healing and I found purpose. I know you talked about purpose this morning, which was really important because we are all born to a purpose. I don't know that I would have chosen this one, but it found me. But in order for me to help educate other people, to really break the stigma of what this is all about, I want to inspire those to know that they can set goals and they can achieve whatever they set their mind to, no matter where you're coming from or what you're coming through. So the transformation that's possible all comes through Safe Alliance, and that's what we're here for today. And I'm going to conclude with a little short story because I struggled with how to give. And I really had a hard time with this because I didn't feel connected when I was physically serving a lot of times, soup kitchen or going down to serve at the shelter. And I remember having a cup of coffee with the pastor of our church, and I said, "Why do I feel like this?" And he goes, "Well, some people were given the gift to earn money, and sometimes writing the check is more important than being there physically. We all need those that can write the check." And so that's why you're here today. So I hope you want as much joy as you can possibly get by writing the biggest check possible. But let's make a difference today, and thank you for allowing me to share my story.